Imagine a massive real estate developer looking down at this really tangled historic city block, right? And they want to completely modernize it.
Okay. Right.
And they basically only have two distinct paths forward. So the first path is, a painstaking renovation. You go in floor by floor, you update the plumbing, reinforce the foundations, and you try your absolute hardest not to displace the people who have lived there for generations.
Right. The careful approach.
Exactly. But then the second path is just, well, bringing in the wrecking ball. Like you evacuate the block, level every single brick to the ground, and just start from this completely blank, sterile slate.
Which is, it's chaotic, right?
It's totally chaotic, but to the architect, it guarantees zero compromises with the old infrastructure.
Yeah, the allure of that wrecking ball is that it sells this illusion of purity. Like you don't have to negotiate with the past at all, you just erase it.
Yeah.
And while we see that dynamic in urban planning, it's actually far more potent when applied to human society. Because ideological movements, they face that exact same fork in the road when they look at, the flaws of the modern world.
Which brings us to the text we are unpacking for you today, because we are taking a deep dive into a manifesto that looks at the entire history of human civilization and basically decides that, the wrecking ball is the only viable option here.
It really does.
It's called The Pioneers of the New Era, Please Come Close to Lifechanyuan. And it's written by an author using the name Deform Buddha.
Quite a title.
Yeah, it's intense. But before we wade into the actual mechanics of this text, we really need to establish the ground rules for this deep dive.
Good idea.
Because look, this manifesto calls for the absolute destruction of old world orders, right? Sweeping away traditional morals, unifying all religions and political parties into a single entity. It is highly, highly charged. So we are acting purely as impartial building inspectors today. We aren't endorsing this movement's radical worldview, and we're not taking a stance against it either. Our mission is strictly analytical.
Right. We just want to dissect the ideological architecture of the source material. We want to show you how a text like this attempts to construct its reality.
Exactly. And honestly, it is a masterclass in mobilization rhetoric.
Oh, absolutely. For anyone trying to understand how massive groups of people can be persuaded to just, abandon their entire lives for a radical cause, texts like this are the blueprint.
Yeah.
They demonstrate exactly how to weave this kind of cosmic grandiosity together with intense, almost apocalyptic urgency to basically hijack human behavior.
And the scale of that cosmic grandiosity is what immediately caught my attention when I was reading it. I mean, the author doesn't just start by saying, society is broken, let's fix it.
No, not at all.
The text claims that a literal new era is brewing and the old order will disappear, but then it throws out this staggering mathematical claim.
Oh, the timeline thing.
Yes. It states that the total amount of knowledge and wisdom humanity has painstakingly accumulated over the last 5,000 years, right? That is going to be completely dwarfed by the knowledge we will gain in just the next 5 years.
Which is, the audacity of that claim is wild. But it serves a very specific psychological function.
How so?
Well, by compressing 5,000 years of human history into something that will be eclipsed in a mere 60 months, the text is intentionally inducing vertigo in the reader.
Vertigo, yeah.
It's telling you that the normal rules of societal evolution are just currently suspended. And if you believe that premise, you immediately feel inadequate. Your current worldview, your education, your history, it's all instantly rendered obsolete.
Right, because how could you possibly keep up? And I kept looking for the mechanism behind that acceleration. How does humanity suddenly learn more in 5 years than in 5 millennia?
Right, what's the engine?
Exactly. And the text points to something it calls a qualitative leap, which it attributes to the, and this is a quote, impacting energy of new photons in the universe.
New photon.
Yeah, these new photons are supposedly bombarding us and causing the frequency of life to rapidly transform into a high-frequency wave.
It's such a fascinating blend of concepts.
It is, because, okay, let's unpack this. It feels almost like the author is trying to describe a mandatory cosmic software update for the human race.
I love that analogy.
Right. But instead of Apple or Microsoft pushing new code to your devices, the universe itself is beaming new photons to forcefully upgrade our base biological or spiritual frequency.
Yeah, it frames enlightenment not as a philosophical journey you choose to take, but as an unavoidable meteorological event. like a storm is coming, whether you like it or not.
Which is a brilliant tactic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Blending the vocabulary of quantum physics with traditional spiritual concepts is a highly effective rhetorical tool.
Because it sounds objective.
Exactly. Words like photons, frequency, and qualitative leap, they carry the authoritative weight of objective science. When a text describes an ideological shift using the language of physics, it bypasses the reader's philosophical defenses.
Oh, that makes sense.
You might debate a moral philosophy, but you don't debate gravity. You don't debate a photon. The text is telling you that this shift is a fundamental law of the universe. And resistance isn't just morally wrong, it's physically impossible.
Which naturally led me to wonder, well, about the people whose hardware isn't compatible with this cosmic update.
Right.
If you don't elevate to this high-frequency wave, what actually happens to you?
And the text has a very clear answer for that.
Yeah, it divides the non-believers into two really distinct, heavily criticized camps. So the first camp is the people who are just completely unaware. The text describes them as being stuck in the mud of the old order, blindly breeding resentment and evil.
Right, completely oblivious to the fact that the fundamental physics of the universe are changing around them.
Oblivious, exactly.
So the author is essentially dismissing the entire functioning world as ignorant and corrupt.
Yeah.
But the real rhetorical venom, that's reserved for the second camp. The text identifies people with slight wisdom.
Slight wisdom.
Yeah, these are individuals who actually sense that a massive shift is occurring, but instead of adapting, they become completely dizzy. Their consciousness simply cannot process the influx of this high-frequency energy.
And the metaphor used for the second group, I mean, it is one of the most vivid in the entire manifesto. The author says these dizzy people are desperately trying to cling to antiquated philosophies, which the text compares to a worn boat deck of the old times.
A worn boat deck, yeah.
Just hoping to survive the oncoming billows of the new era. And I was really struck by how trapping that imagery is.
It's incredibly trapping.
Because if you are reading this text and you have any doubts, the author has already anticipated your hesitation. The text implies that your skepticism isn't a sign of intelligence.
No, it's a symptom of your dizziness.
Right. You are just a panicked person clinging to a piece of rotting wood in a cosmic hurricane.
It creates a brilliant false dichotomy. You can either be the enlightened pioneer riding the high-frequency wave, or you're the pathetic fool clinging to the debris of a sinking ship.
There is no middle ground.
Exactly. No middle ground where you simply disagree with the premise. And this establishes the foundation for the next major argument in the text. Because if the entire world is a rotting, sinking ship amidst a cosmic storm, then trying to patch the leaks is a waste of time.
Which brings us right back to the wrecking ball. Because the text pivots from this cosmic diagnosis of new photons directly to a ruthless earthly prescription.
Very ruthless.
It states, without any ambiguity, that there is no time to improve the incomplete consciousness of human beings. It explicitly demands that followers destroy the old order completely and rebuild a paradise of heaven on the ruins.
On the ruins.
Yeah, and I really want to pause on the sheer scale of the destruction being demanded here, because we aren't talking about overthrowing a specific government.
No, it's way bigger than that.
The text says this new era must sweep away old moralities, old traditions, and break the boundaries of countries, religions, regions, and cultures.
Hell of it.
All of it. It even goes so far as to mandate a great shock to the traditional idea of family.
And targeting the family unit, that is a hallmark of movements that demand total systemic overhaul.
Really? Why the family?
Because your family represents your primary allegiance.
Right.
It's your deepest emotional bond, your safety net. If a movement wants to become the absolute center of your universe, it cannot share your loyalty with your parents, your siblings, or your children.
Well,
By declaring the concept of family as part of the corrupt old order that needs to be destroyed, the text is intentionally severing the reader's anchors to the outside world.
so what does this all mean for everyday life? I mean, they aren't talking about slow, progressive reform. It is a systematic dismantling of human identity.
Piece by piece.
Yeah. You strip away nationality, you strip away religion, you strip away culture, and finally you strip away family. And you are left with a completely isolated individual.
Exactly.
And the text enforces this isolation by stating that any conservative or indifferent ideas will be mocked and cast aside mercilessly. And I struggled with that word, mercilessly.
That's very harsh.
It feels so aggressive for a text that later talks about building a paradise of heaven. But I suppose if you are trying to convince people to drop the wrecking ball on their own lives, you have to frame the past as so toxic that showing it mercy would be a fatal error.
You've hit on the core psychological mechanism at play there.
Hmm.
Because this raises an important question, right? To justify the trauma of destroying your own identity and your ties to society, the old world must be painted as utterly irredeemable.
Right.
If the old order is just slightly flawed, nobody is going to pick up a sledgehammer. But if the old order is the source of all evil and suffering, then complete destruction becomes a profound moral imperative.
Yeah.
The author is creating a terrifying crisis so they can completely monopolize the cure.
Well, let's talk about that cure, because if the old boat is sinking and the entire structure of human society needs to be leveled, I mean, the reader's natural panic response is going to be, who is going to save me and how do we build the new world? And the text anticipates this panic and immediately shuts down the idea of individual survival. It argues that individual power is entirely unpractical.
Unpractical. Right.
Yeah, you can't just go off into the woods, meditate on these new photons, and save yourself. The text insists that only the organization called Lifechanyuan has the overall grasp and foresight to deal with the complexities of the future.
Only them.
Only them. It claims to be the only entity capable of unifying all religions and political parties.
And this is the pivot from ideological theory to organizational capture. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text strips away your agency by insisting you cannot survive alone, and then it presents itself as the exclusive sanctuary.
It creates a monopoly on survival.
Yes, a monopoly. And the mechanism for entering this sanctuary is perhaps the most interesting linguistic choice in the entire manifesto.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up, because the terminology used here is wild.
It really is.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text urges readers to become a Chanyuan celestial, and to achieve this, you have to attain a visa of life.
A visa. A visa. Think about the implications of a visa. We usually talk about spiritual movements in terms of, awakening or enlightenment or belief.
Yeah, internal states.
Right. But a visa is a bureaucratic, legalistic concept. It implies a hard border. It implies an issuing authority that has the power to either grant you entry or deny you and just leave you to the cosmic billows.
Oh, exactly.
It's like Lifechanyuan is positioning itself not just as a philosophical school of thought, but as a sovereign spiritual nation state that you need literal immigration papers to enter.
And a visa also requires an application. It requires you to submit yourself to the judgment of the authority. By framing salvation as a visa of life, the text establishes a really rigid hierarchy.
Oh, I didn't even think about the application part.
Yeah, you don't just walk into the new era. You must be vetted, approved, and granted permission by Lifechanyuan. It is a brilliant mechanism for ensuring absolute compliance. And to incentivize you to submit to this authority, the text makes some pretty astronomical promises. It says that once you secure this visa and enter the core area, you'll be surrounded by the love of the greatest creator, along with brothers, sisters, and lovers.
A very utopian promise.
Very utopian. But the promise that really stood out to me was intellectual. The text claims that your knowledge and wisdom will enhance rapidly in a geometric series.
Notice how the author returns to mathematical phrasing there. A geometric series means exponential compounding growth.
Yeah, it appeals directly to the ego of the modern optimizer. It doesn't just promise you peace, it promises you superhuman intelligence.
The ultimate fast track.
The ultimate fast track. And to close the trap, the text attaches a ticking clock. It warns that anyone who hesitates will watch the golden chance slip by.
The classic ticking clock.
Yeah, and the urgency is totally designed to bypass your critical thinking. You don't have time to verify the physics of the new photons or, question the destruction of your family ties. The door is closing, the wave is crashing, get the visa now.
Right. So let's examine what happens once a follower actually gets the visa.
Okay, let's do it.
Because the text doesn't just ask for physical loyalty to the organization. It demands a complete rewiring of the follower's cognitive processes.
The mindset stuff.
Yeah, it outlines a highly specific, abstract progression of mental frameworks that a Chanyuan celestial must master to survive.
And this progression is fascinating, though initially, I'll admit, it sounds incredibly dense. The text says you must take wing with non-form thinking, then move into Taiji thinking, advance to heart image thinking, and ultimately achieve a state called holographic order thinking.
It's a lot of terminology.
It's a lot, but instead of just glossing over these terms, we really need to look at what they actually demand of a person's brain. So if we start with non-form thinking, it seems to imply a detachment from material reality, like you have to stop relying on empirical evidence.
Right, let go of what you can see and touch.
Exactly. And then Taiji thinking suggests embracing the unity of opposites, blurring the lines between traditional concepts of right and wrong which, by the way, is incredibly useful if your organization is demanding you do radical things, like abandoning your family.
Precisely. These are not just philosophical exercises. They are tools for cognitive isolation.
Wow.
As you progress to heart image thinking, you are learning to prioritize internal, emotionally driven visualization over external facts.
So trusting the feeling over the reality.
Yes. And the final stage, holographic order thinking, that's the ultimate goal. In a hologram, every tiny fragment contains the image of the whole, right?
Right.
Holographic order thinking requires the follower to see the ideology of Lifechanyuan embedded in every single aspect of the universe.
Oh, man. So it means your brain is entirely enclosed within the logic of the organization. There is literally no outside reality left.
None.
But why does the text require this immense cognitive heavy lifting? Like, what's it building up to? Because this is where the manifesto takes a terrifying cinematic turn.
It really shifts gears here.
Yeah, after all this lofty talk about high-frequency waves and holographic thinking, the text drops a brutal apocalyptic warning. It says all this mental rewiring is necessary because difficult days are coming where, and I quote, "there will be no light coming from the sun and the moon, and the earth will be shrouded in darkness."
The transition from the abstract to the primal is just jarring and highly intentional.
Wait, the sun and moon literally losing their light. We've gone from philosophical new photons and thinking styles to straight-up end-of-the-world darkness.
Yeah. The author pushes the reader's intellect to the absolute limit with complex cognitive demands, and then suddenly drops them into a scenario of visceral, primitive terror. A world without the sun and moon. Utter, freezing darkness.
It is the ultimate psychological anchor, because in this pitch-black apocalypse, the text assigns a very specific role to the people who hold the visa.
And what is that role?
It says the pioneers of Lifechanyuan must serve as the literal light. They are tasked with guiding kind, honest, and hardworking people out of the darkness and into a sunny, prosperous fairyland where all under heaven are of one family.
And this is where the true brilliance of the ideological architecture is revealed. The text takes individuals who have been asked to destroy their own identities, abandon their families, and submit entirely to a central authority, and it completely reframes their submission as the ultimate act of heroism.
They aren't victims of a radical organization. They are the sole saviors of humanity.
Exactly. If you hold the holographic map of the universe in your mind, you are the only flashlight left on a dark planet.
Wow.
This creates a psychological barrier to leaving the group that is almost impossible to overcome. Because if you decide to walk away from Lifechanyuan, you aren't just changing your mind about a philosophy.
No.
You are choosing to extinguish the only light left in the universe, effectively condemning all honest, hard-working people to perish in the dark.
So the guilt associated with leaving would just be astronomical. You are locked in by your own perceived heroism.
Completely locked in.
When we step back and view this entire blueprint from a distance, the sheer mechanics of Deiform Buddha's manifesto are staggering.
Truly.
The author identifies the current world as an irredeemable, sinking ship stuck in the mud. They introduce an unstoppable, scientifically framed catalyst, this cosmic wave of new photons that forces an immediate evolutionary leap.
Right. They then use that crisis to mandate the merciless destruction of every competing loyalty in a person's life, nations, religions, and specifically the family.
Yeah.
Once the individual is isolated, the text presents Lifechanyuan as the sole sanctuary, demanding followers apply for a visa of life before the clock runs out.
And finally, they lock the followers into an escalating series of cognitive echo chambers, culminating in this heroic fantasy where the followers are the sole bearers of light in a terrifying global blackout, guiding the remnants of humanity toward a utopian fairyland.
It is a completely self-sustaining, inescapable ecosystem of thought.
It is.
And for anyone navigating today's landscape of competing information, analyzing a text like this is vital. You begin to recognize the structural patterns of radicalization.
Right, the blueprints.
Yeah. When you see a group blending the vocabulary of hard science with mystical promises, or demanding the severing of traditional support networks in exchange for exponential growth, or using apocalyptic ticking clocks to bypass critical debate, you're looking at the exact same architectural blueprint we've dissected today.
You learn to spot the wrecking ball before it hits your neighborhood.
Exactly.
Which leads me to the final thought I want to leave you with today. This text aggressively advertises that by joining this movement, your knowledge and wisdom will compound in a geometric series.
The ultimate promise.
Right. It frames this exclusive visa of life as the ultimate cheat code to understanding the universe and surviving the impending darkness. But here's the thing to ponder. If an organization promises you the ultimate exclusive shortcut to absolute truth, and the price of admission is the total merciless destruction of the old order of your life, your culture, your family, your very way of thinking, what essential pieces of your own critical faculties and your own individuality are they secretly requiring you to surrender at the border?
That's the real question.
If you let someone else demolish your entire reality to build you a paradise, whose building are you actually living in?